Tendros confirmed he had contact with a patient who tested positive for the coronavirus, though asymptomatic right now he is self-isolating.
Amid a global recession, the CCP pushes the propaganda that factory orders are surging and that factories experience labor shortages.
The CCP used digital RMB to control and enslave the Chinese people.
CCP's foreign ministry called on the U.S. to stop suppressing and persecuting Chinese journalists in the U.S.
The PLA conducted a military drill in the Bohai during the U.S. election.
The CCP delayed customs clearance of Australian lobsters on the pretext of protecting food safety for Chinese consumers.
CCP continued to cover up the truth about the virus, saying it was willing to join efforts to find the origin of the virus and prevent the disease.
Somewhere in China during Halloween night, people dressed up as ghosts in the Red Army's uniforms.
Global News Network reported that Hong Kong opposition lawmaker Xu Zhifeng was arrested. At least 8 opposition members were involved in the case.
Carrie Lam visited Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, and Shenzhen to learn how to be a dictator.
Hong Kong traitor Liang Zhenying said the national security law achieved outstanding results. He asked Hong Kongers to obey the law. The epidemic in Langzhou, Sichuan province was spreading and couldn't be covered up anymore. Danger! Students had a PE class outdoor in the smoke. Look at those students playing the basketball, jogging in the field. They are all exercising. Do you know the PM 2.5 level? Can you see? The level is 148. A lecturer about the Communist Party openly thanked Bin Laden. We had such a sweet development during the strategic time. To be frank, we should thank Bin Laden for that.
Unravel the scam of Ant Financial. Ant Financial used more than 3 billion yuan of capital and asset securitization to issue loans in cycles. In a matter of years, its capital has been recycled 40 times, creating a loan book of 300 billion yuan on a capital base of mere 3 billion, representing a leverage of hundreds of times. In the securitization structure, Tranche C is often financed internally with cross-purchases by subsidiaries within the Ant Group. The question is, did they finance Tranche C securities with their own capital? Imagine a 300 billion loan book on a mere 3 billion capital. How could it be all their own capital? This must have been achieved by cross-buying between subsidiaries. You raise money to buy my Tranche C, and I raise money to buy yours. The ultimate risks may have been passed on to those who bought their financial products. They take in the profits and leave the risks to the public. The regulators saw this problem and began to put in capital requirements for asset securitization. This is tantamount to limiting the leverage ratio of Ant Group so that asset securitization cannot go on indefinitely. Let's take a look at the Ant's prospectus. It is stated that in consumer loans, except for asset securitization, the bulk of the remaining consumer loans are loans issued in cooperation with banks. In this type of business, Ant Group essentially only charges a service fee. Allow illegal construction and later demolish the same to create GDP. October 30, 2020, in Liangao County, Hainan Province, a residential community began to demolish buildings.
3 squirrels and other snack brands were found to contain carcinogens, but are still sold normally. 3 squirrel manufacturers responded to the detection of carcinogens. There is no requirements in the national standard, and it is sold normally.
An oil well exploded late at night in Nengjiang, Sichuan, and the only government advice is don't panic.
The CCP ruled the country with falsehood and did not respect science, like Yuan Nongping lied to deceive the Chinese people, launched a settler double cropping ratio 3,000 gene formula. Yuan Nongping said, "I'm very happy and very satisfied."
More than excited. 非常激动 excited 的就是激动 more than 更加的意思更加激动那我们想知道我原来那个达到80公斤我就很满意了现在超过了900公斤那我就非常满意了
Under CCP's arbitrary rules, this truck was fined 20,000 yuan for carrying rapeseed cakes. How does animal feed become hazardous goods?
So tell us what you're seeing out there. I know you've been visiting all of these cities, and you've also traveled with the president a bit. What can you tell us?
No, Maria, I went to 33 cities just last month, and some of that was with the president in different parts of the country, from Miami to Arizona. And I just see the enthusiasm, and that's what we're not seeing on the Biden side. These crowds of 25,000, 50,000. And what you're finding, if you check these early votes, what has closed in the last few days is amazing. If you take most of the battleground states, the president is in a stronger position than he was in 2016. If you look at Arizona, Wisconsin, Ohio, and Georgia, the president has a better position than he did 4 years ago. And now we're seeing President Trump. I've never seen somebody with this work ethic. I've never seen somebody that can handle the pressure that he has. And what is he able to do? He's got 10 more rallies in 2 days. He has crowds that we've never seen before, and he's got an enthusiasm. And I'd rather be in that position than be in Joe Biden wondering whether you're going to get a few people to pull up in a car.
Let me start, Maria. I take no joy in uncovering and revealing the truth about the Bidens. I'm sure Peter doesn't either. Those of us that are investigating this, we're doing it for a very serious purpose because this is a mess. It's a huge mess, and it's a mess that's not going away, particularly if Vice President Biden becomes president. It's one of the reasons I've been saying for quite some time that I never felt that Vice President Biden should ever run for president. I think this is probably one of the reasons that President Obama did not encourage the vice president to run. So this is a huge mess. Here's further evidence of it, that the FBI apparently opened up an investigation in 2019. One of the questions I would have is, why didn't they open it up in 2018? You know, this is when they convicted Devin Archer of the Indian bond fraud. I think a lot of this information was probably available. Some of these transactions were occurring back then. I mean, the question I have, did they not look into Hunter Biden because of his last name? It's a serious question. The fact that we probably have two systems of justice, one for Democrats and the well-connected, and one for Republicans like President Trump and the rest of Americans. That's one of the reasons that the American people are losing confidence in agencies like the FBI.
So the FBI has been investigating Hunter Biden for money laundering since 2019. Now, this begs several questions. Who was paying Hunter Biden the money for him to launder? Was it Ukraine? Was it Russia? Was it our enemy, Communist China? We'd like to know. And if Hunter Biden is under investigation for money laundering, who was he laundering money for? In other words, who was getting the foreign money after Beijing Biden's son laundered it? Could that money have gone to the, quote, big guy? Remember, we wouldn't have known any of this if it were not for Rudy Giuliani and Bernie Kerik. They came forward on this network and revealed what they found on Hunter Biden's laptop. Since then, Bernie and Rudy have been talking to other legitimate news organizations like OAN.
Photos have been taken off. Most of them are horrible. They're pornographic and disgusting. Significant number of photos of underage girls. Mm-hmm. And the underage girls.
This is something we looked over last week.
And there is one girl in particular that he seems to have an obsession with. You'll see on the drive some of his relatives complaining that he creates an unsafe environment for the kids. So here's my question. When the FBI got this almost a year ago and they read this, why didn't they react to it the way I did?
This is the moment police came to arrest Hong Kong lawmaker Andrew Wan in the latest move by authorities amid a broader crackdown on anti-government forces. Wan was among 7 prominent opposition politicians arrested early on Sunday on charges relating to the obstruction of a legislative council meeting in May. Police said 6 men and 1 woman had been arrested and that the group included current and former lawmakers. The 7 were later released on bail and several of them appeared at a media briefing, at which one of the detained, chairman of the Democratic Party Wu Chi-wai, described the incident as absurd and intended to create a chilling effect to make people more cautious with their words and actions.
Why, are we over the top in calling this the Biden family crime syndicate? How do we get off calling it a crime syndicate?
Well, I think that's exactly right. And what you're looking at is essentially, as I've laid out, this is a Chinese triad type organization. You have the mountain master, and then you have the little master. The mountain master is the one, he stays on the mountain. He's directing everything. The little masters are the ones that go out and do it. That is how a triad operates. They operate in the shadows. They use their power. They use their influence. This comes from CCP. This comes from Mao. This comes from the history. That's what we're looking at here. And Steve, look, remember, when we started, when you guys started War Room Pandemic, I was the first guest on the first show. And we ended that show talking about the mandate of heaven. And now here we are a year later, and we're ending on the hard drive from hell. We went from the mandate of heaven to the hard drive from hell.
Posobiec laid it out. It's a crime syndicate. Give me some details, particularly how, and we're going to get into the second hour. Posobiec's going to come back in a minute. We're going to talk about Pennsylvania a lot in the next hour as a key for this election. Talk to me about why they're a crime syndicate.
Well, you look at Bohai Harvest, and we say we've got 2 of these, I presume, secret board meeting notes, and they describe how, number one, many of the candidates that they want to purchase may not be available the next year because Western intelligence is onto their objectives. But just from a point of view, from an accountant, from the point of view of an IRS regulator, anybody looking at this, they list all of the various entities, the summary of BHR subsidiaries and managed funds. Let me tell you, there are about 40 different partnerships, LLCs. More than about a dozen of them are lodged in the Cayman Islands and the BVIs. It looks as if the carried interest entities, the employee co-investment entities, the shell companies, many of the things from which Biden, Bulger, Archer would have likely gotten their monies were based in the BVIs and the Cayman Islands. I assure you, listeners, there's no way that our regulators didn't know about this.
So what I'm saying is, if we've all watched enough TV, right? You've seen enough movies. If you have crooked interests, it's very important to create multiplicity of shell companies. Now, we've seen this in Hunter. We posted something a few days ago where he and Eric Schwerin are having a conversation with a woman who's trying to understand why it is that all these monies are going to these different places. And Hunter lays it out. Owasco was a thing set up in the early 2000s, long before his father was even president. Delaware Corporation, millions of dollars from the Hudson deal.
Long before whose father was president?
Long before Hunter Biden's father was president.
Well, he's not president.
Well, long before he was vice president. I apologize.
Is that a Freudian slip?
No, it's not a Freudian.
We're going to hit the eject button. Okay, it's official. It's official.
Okay.
Jack Maxey's going to take a nap this afternoon.
But, you see all of these connections. And so the Chinese, the objective behind most of the outside of China investments from this fund were to capture strategic corporations in the West to give the Chinese military an advantage over us. Now, the investments that they made in China were to guarantee a return for the investments because they can determine the valuation of a company. Inside the documents, they describe deals that, in a basic way, go like this. We're going to buy XYZ company at X. In 2 years, the Bank of China will buy it back from us at X plus Y.
This is
sound like a good deal, guys?
By the way,
it is.
By the way, Lao Beijing, remember, this all comes off of, this is not a victimless crime. All of this money is taken off the sweat of the brow of the slave labor of China. That's the way the system works. The way the system works, it's their money. Just like you out there as a deplorable, or now you're called ugly by the beautiful Bidens, right? The beautiful Bidens. You're ugly. The beautiful Bidens and all their glory on that crack pipe, Joe, your son on that, a grown man, by the way, on that crack pipe, and all that beauty. We got so many beautiful pictures of Beau Biden. Right, so many beautiful. He's beautiful. Hunter. He's a beautiful boy. He's a beautiful boy. Is Hunter Biden, a beautiful boy? But the deplorables are ugly. They're ugly. The Bidens are beautiful.
Do you know what, Stephen? We've sort of fallen into the trap because you read through this, and his whole family treats him like he's a 17-year-old kid, and we keep calling Hunter the boy, Hunter the young man.
He's a grown man.
Hunter is over 50 years of age, and it is high time that Hunter face the consequences of his criminality.
Oh, he will. The ugly nature and selling his country out. Sold his country out. That's what this is about. Sold your country out.
But he could not have done it had his father not been Joe Biden, the vice president of the United States.
Not just vice president, you're wrong there. Just head of the Senate Foreign Relations
Committee.
This is
Senate Intel Committee.
Senate Intel Committee. The elite capture here has been a long time coming.
他们的恐惧是我们的武器，我们的胜利。谢谢了，兄弟姐妹们，你们健身了吗？行动，行动，行动！中共，你完了 ！Take down the CCP！
Just beginning, but the games you want to play. Bring it on and I will fight to the end. Just watch and see. It's all started, everything's begun, and you are over. Cause we're taking down the CCP. Spread the word all through Hong Kong. We will fight till they're all gone. We rejoice when there's no more. Let's take down the CCP. They have all lied for too long. We will end what they do wrong. Spread the word all through Hong Kong. Let's take down the CCP. Let the bullets fly a little longer, and you will surrender. Let the bullets fly a little longer. We will have freedom to live. We will win. You'll surrender. Let the bullets fly a little longer. Let the bullets fly a little longer. Let the bullets fly a little longer. Let the bullets fly a little longer.
你完了！干灭中国共产党这个 CCP， 才能让我们远离恐惧。Take down the CCP.
They try to scare the nation with fabrication, but we see through the lies. We won't fall, we will fight you back. Police corruption with crooked assumption. They ran our lives, but no more. We will win. We will take down the CCP. Spread the word all through Hong Kong. We will fight till they're all gone. We rejoice when there's no more. Let's take down the CCP. They have all lied for too long. We will end what they longer. We will have freedom to live. We will win. You surrender. Let the bullets fly a little longer. 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 Bullets fly a little longer, and you will surrender. Let the bullets fly a little longer. We will have freedom to live. We will win. You surrender. Let the bullets fly a little longer. 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 Let the bullets fly a little longer.
Take down the evil CCP.
U.S. records more than 81,000 new coronavirus cases in just 24 hours. Russia reports over 18,000 new cases for fourth straight day. World surpasses 1.2 million COVID-19 deaths. British Prime Minister Johnson to tell MPs coronavirus deaths could be twice as high in second wave. Singapore reports one new COVID-19 case, lowers the daily figure since February 25th. Europe's COVID-19 cases double in 5 weeks. Total infections surpassed 10 million. British media says that Prince William contracted coronavirus early this year. New coronavirus lockdowns led to oil price slump.
Dear mama, are you okay over there? Your son is crying and missing you, and sees you in his dreams. You said take down the CCP, cause it's God's will, it's God's will. So I'll wait for you, and I'll see you when we end the CCP, yeah. So